What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 16 of On the 50. Today, I have a very special guest, Lindsey Schueller. She comes to us from Marietta, Georgia, originally from the Michigan area, and I marched with her and originally met her at Rhythm X in 2011. Lindsey is the visual designer for Legends Drum and Bugle Corps, Q2, in various high schools all around the country. We had a really great discussion, kind of an expansive one, starting in visual design, where inspiration comes from, her methods of design, and just the type of person she is that led her to become a visual designer in activity. We also talk about her background in audiology and the way that our hearing is affected by the marching arts and just the sort of the risks that we take with our ears if we don't use proper protection. And it's really a growing topic that I think is really important, that kind of surfaces because we do not have enough awareness just towards our hearing health. We have focused on other various forms of health and wellness in the marching activity, and this is one that is really up and coming, and I think is going to be really important to the conversation just as we move the activity into the future. We also talk about the Instep initiative in DCI and other programs that are being led by various leaders in the activity that are looking to expand the diversity within specifically the leadership of the marching arts. Instep focuses on women, but there are various other organizations that are doing similar work. One of them that comes to mind is Girls March, which is led by Lauren Teal and Sandy Rennick. So this episode, it was super informative. I learned a ton about hearing loss, audiology, as well as the work being done in the Instep initiative, though I knew a little bit about it, but I was certainly have better insight now. So you will certainly enjoy this episode. It is interesting. Lindsey is awesome, very smart, and just a very original person. She's unlike anyone I know, so I hope you enjoy it. One thing I do want to talk to you about, and I think it's important to hear and for people to hear about initiatives being taken in our world, especially initiatives that you are a leader within. So could you talk a little bit about the Instep initiative that's happening in DCI right now?
Yeah, so Instep is a kind of a program that is aiming to amplify women's voices within the marching arts community, and just kind of making sure that they are equally represented in all facets, whether that's membership, admin, designers, directors, just making sure that voice is heard and present, especially because the membership is pretty equal. It's pretty 50-50, but as you go into different professions that deal with drum corps, it becomes not 50-50 anymore. It's much more male dominant. So they host talks, get-togethers. They do a lot of just outreach to make sure that more equality is being achieved year after year.
What are some of the things, now that this is being more systematically identified as a problem, and there is zero question that the representation we see on staffs is not equal. There's no question when you look after the equal sign. Like, I want to focus just after the equal sign for a second. Drum staffs. I mean, I'm generally on drum teams. It's so male dominated. It's like not even a question, but we need to backtrack so much, to get to like the reasoning and the causality for what we see. So what are some of the causes for what we see after the equal sign?
I think it's tough because I do think guys tend to find, I don't know, maybe a different kind of niche that they want to continue to pursue. Maybe it's hard to really pinpoint why more women or people of color aren't in represented in staffs. And I'm super, super lucky at Legends that we have a very, very diverse staff. Like almost our entire guard staff are people of color, almost all of them. And we have a ton of women on drum staff. We have several on visual staff. It's pretty cool going on there. But outside of, that little bubble, that's not the case. And I don't know exactly why. Because, I know some great, like women who do staging in like winter guards, and how can we translate that to corps or marching band or anything else? Because clearly they have that ability. They're doing it in a different arena. How can we specifically make drum corps more inclusive and more welcoming? And I think representation slowly, obviously you need to get people in and to do the thing. But having that representation visible for the members, it does make a huge difference. I've had several members talk to me or message me just saying that they didn't think that was a possibility for, women to lead a design team, for women to be drill writers, for women to run the battery. So, being present and being vocal and encouraging those students to continue to pursue all of it, I think it will be important, but it starts with seeing that it's a possibility. Are there women who are doing it already?
I feel like music and the performing arts has this clashing idea where on one hand, the performing arts are very welcoming to people of all types, and we operate under the guise of a like universality. We have like a positivist approach towards this is a universal. It's a method for expression through any type, and that is all well and good, but it's not being played out in reality. And I think these issues stem back to stereotypical behavior, stereotypical pathways that start right when you begin in the music program. When I was in band in high school, it was like the girls played flute, clarinet.
Yep.
There was a mix in the saxophone section. There was a mix in the trumpet section. Low brass was mostly male dominated, as was percussion. There's obviously outliers. So I do think it starts in like a fundamental educational setting, and truly I think it's up for its parents who are promoting their children to become music students, and its band directors and private instructors to kind of allow people to forge their own path regardless of perception. And I know it's probably changing, but I think with the marching arts specifically, with DCI, you see something that happens in sort of the like high academic culture. These ideas start to permeate and they start to froth over. They froth over into a more like pop culture, sort of common cultural milieu. The marching arts are very slow to change. Though on one hand, we're very progressive. We have all these people that are of various. We have trans people. We have BIPOC. We have just a variety of individuals who are maybe performers and who are able to perform and be expressive, which is so great. And I personally, marching in the Cavaliers, it's an all-male drum corps still, but I got to become friends on an intimate level with people who had different sexual orientations, different backgrounds, etc. Whether we think the Cavaliers need to move beyond that to accept trans people and to accept women, I don't want to have that conversation here. I haven't thought about that enough, and I haven't formulated an opinion that's useful. But it's this very odd kind of polarity that we are simultaneously progressive, and yet DCI is very much headed by kind of older white men. And this is where it's like we need to it's like both bottom up, top down. We need to start students out in a place where they can be expressive in whatever way they want, and we also need to change our leadership at the top end to make sure that it's always coming up, it's always being supported and promoted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. and being able to have those real conversations with the folks that are making the decisions, and making sure that they are aware that that's an issue that's important.
Right.
Definitely.
And it's going to take time, but I think this is a time where it's like we need to identify some of these problems, and I know for me, like at the DCI summit, I think there was some, you all met for Instep. Are we including men in the Instep initiatives? Like, are there how is that working? How is that happening? I don't know enough about it.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to just be a part of that initiative and help promote that, and that kind of their message, can be a part of it. I mean, so Genevieve, who's with Bluecoats, she kind of heads all of that up, but her husband, Dave Glasgow, was at almost all of the meetings as well. There was, I think it was this past year. Yeah, it was, that I did a talk at one of their meetings on semifinals, and, James came along, and there were other men in attendance, and just kind of listening to women's voices. So it's definitely an open organization that's just trying to promote more awareness and more inclusion.
I think the participation of men is very, very important. We need to get people who either don't understand or have not really fully confronted these problems. They need to be the ones in the room, though I don't think they should be the dominant voices. I don't think they should be the ones standing up talking. I think it needs to be the leadership that we have in Instep, Genevieve, you, Lindsey Vento, Lindsey Kuzmarek, other individuals such as that. But I think that it is very, very important that we make this something that is oriented towards everyone, so that learning can take place. That is not going to be comfortable for people.
Right. And progress isn't comfortable.
No, it's not. Growth is not comfortable. And, I was very lucky in my formal education to sort of find myself in feminist theory classes, in post-colonial classes, in women's literature classes. Literature is innately political in many ways, whether it's the readership, whether it's the authors, whether it's the subject matter, whether it's the time period, whether it's the geography. I was lucky to just steep in these environments where this world that I was so comfortable with, I realized was only my subjective experience, and it wasn't the real experience at all. And I really think that the marching arts has a long way to go, and I really want to promote the participation in these programs for really anyone who needs it, and it really almost everyone does at this point.
Yeah.
So,
and I think,
go ahead.
I think we're doing better. Compared to just a couple of years ago, especially with all of the sexual assault that was very, very rampant, that it does seem like that avenue is getting better. Obviously, it's not completely eradicated yet, and unfortunately may never be. It's unfortunately part of kind of our society right now, and that's something, as a whole we need to analyze. But I do think things are getting better. Everyone is more aware of issues. People are more willing to speak up when they see things happening or know or think things are happening. And women's voices are more prevalent, and now I think is a really good time to dive into, are we representing races? And I don't think we are, and there's there's a lot to go into that. Starting with just education, are we educating all of the students in music to the same degree, or are we just educating these privileged few, and that's where all of our membership is coming from? Are we doing outreach to other places? So there's a lot of growth to be had there, and that's not my conversation to have. there's a lot of other voices in our community that have those experiences and can really speak to that. I think that'll be important.
It definitely is, and I am very excited to have this platform because I am going to be having these conversations as we go forward. They're incredibly relevant and they're overdue, and I think it's really important to put that information out there because it can't be buried. If we are an activity that claims it is progressive, we need to be progressive and not just label ourselves as that. And that's a problem if we sit there and we congratulate ourselves for being progressive, but we're not taking a fully intersectional approach. And that's really, for me, had been a turning point, thinking about things intersectionally, not just looking at someone in terms of the most low-hanging identity category and saying, this is the experience you're having because of this one prism of your identity. There's multiple things at play: socioeconomic status, education, your home life, your political ideology, your racial background, your sexual orientation, your gender orientation. I mean, it's just there's a lot. There's a lot there, yeah. And it's like, is that complicated to dig into? I mean, yeah, it is, but
it's necessary.
It's necessary. It's worth the investment, because what will come of that is our activity will just be better, and we will all be more mature, and we'll all be more open-minded if we push ourselves, especially in the performing arts. The performing arts can't claim to be one thing and then be something else. We have to actually be ahead, I think, of the curve in that regard. So can you provide some resources for people who want to learn more about Instep? If people want to learn more, I don't know if you know about the Girls March initiative, which is specifically geared toward percussion. What resources can we use? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, any of those are great, and you can access Instep through DCI's website, and they have a full write-up and a bunch of information there, some email folks that you can be in contact with. But yeah, there's a lot more just groups and organizations that are really promoting the marching arts for women. So there's a lot in Facebook. There's like you said, Girls March, which is for percussionists, and they do a great job of really amplifying that voice. So yeah, there's a lot of resources, and I could probably send links to you to post wherever.
And of course, anyone that is listening can, reach out to you, whether it's on Facebook, and just continue to. The research is out there. There's no question. We have the access that we need to move this forward. It's not that much work to do a little bit of Googling and find yourself steeped in really important information regarding what we're talking about.
For sure.
Lindsey, it's been a blast. We've been great friends since we marched together at Rhythm X, and I've always respected you, and I always just loved how positive you always were on the floor. And it's been awesome to see, your growth in the activity as someone who is pretty much the same, I think, the same age outs that I actually had. And, we are part of a generation that is now speaking up and speaking out about these things that we see as important at activity. And I think it matters. So I really appreciate you taking the time out today to get on here and talk about just everything we talked about. And I hope to have you on here again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.